everybody, and welcome back to Game Over Winnipeg. My name is Lyss, one of your regular hosts. I'm so excited to be doing this game here with my two favorite people in the entire world, and I'm excited to break down a Jets win with them. Annie O'Donnell, Rachel Doerrie, how are you both doing on this fine Sunday evening?
It's going.
It's going. Yeah, it's the way she goes sometimes. I think we all have, like, we're all super amped up to be here hanging out with each other because, like, the vibes are always so good, but, like, well, we're gonna get into why we're all kind of in a weird mood. Just, I feel weird. I feel insane. I feel weird. Jets fans obviously know why I feel weird, but I'm also kind of happy. This is the Winnipeg Jets' first comeback win of the year, I believe, is what I saw or what I heard on the broadcast somewhere, which is a good thing because they haven't had a lot of times they've been like down by large amounts and things like that in the third period, but also bad because if you can't come back to win in the third period, vibes are pretty bad. But they did 4-2 win over the Anaheim Ducks tonight. Rachel, gonna throw it to you right off the bat. How'd you feel about this game?
I kind of like being a neutral party. It's fun because I have sons on both teams that I just get to cheer for. One is a short king, one is very not a short king. He's very large king. But these are two teams I really enjoy watching. So it was kind of fun for me to just be able to like sit back and enjoy the game, albeit you never like to see like anyone get hurt and all the fisticuffs that come along with that. But I thought on the whole, like the third period was one of the most entertaining periods of hockey I've watched this season. Like I just thought the back and forth, the penalty kill, the power plays, like everything was kind of bumping. You get like a late goal. Like I like the vibes. So for me, I mean, as a neutral, can't ask for much more than that.
100% Annie. What about you? For those of you who don't know Annie is a Ducks fan, so a little bit less of the neutrality. He's like, oh, I'm just here to watch some good hockey. Annie had to watch 4 consecutive goals get scored against her team in the third period. So Annie, how did you feel about that one, just kind of across the board?
I mean, that was 100% blown, just absolutely disaster crumbling in the third period. I mean, for one, you're less than 2 minutes away from at least getting a point, and then you just blow that. But you're up 2-0 with for a beautiful goal from Adam Henrique, by the way. I saw that snipe. I was like, oh, he can still do that. Okay. Like it's a nice reminder that hey, it's still Adam Henrique. But and then of course 2-1 right after that. And it was just collapse from there. Like no excuse for that. Like there's games where you see stuff happen where you're like, hey, you're completely outplayed. And when with a team like the Ducks, where they've obviously skid a bit since their hot start since October, and there's games where hey, they were a competitive team but completely outplayed us. The game against the Kings a couple weeks back, completely outplayed, but this game was completely winnable for them, and it was just disaster. So that's how I feel.
Yeah, I mean,
Disaster up until, obviously the first and second period weren't all perfect, but John Gibson looked great. They're still taking dumb penalties, which do not get me started on that. But penalty kill looked great, especially having to defend a 5-minute one on there. But it's one of those things where you're like, these games happen, but it's just unacceptable. There's too much talent on this team for that to happen.
yeah, no, I think that's the kind of thing that it's like at the end of the day, like some teams are better than others, but they're all professional hockey players, and just the idea of that type of collapse is always so frustrating when they don't have to be doing that, and so
Right.
it's definitely the kind of thing where it's like that was preventable. But you started off talking a little bit about the penalty kill by the Ducks there. Why don't you dive into that a little bit more, and then I'm going to throw it to Rachel for a little bit of an objective perspective on just kind of the 5-on-4 as a whole for the Jets and the Ducks in this game.
You know, I mean, one of the biggest concerns, even back very beginning of the season, one of the biggest problems the Ducks have faced is just taking dumb, dumb penalties. There is no excuse. And I think too many men is the stupidest penalty you can take.
It really is.
And it's not
so
close.
bad.
Like, do you not know how to count? Where are we missing the communication here? And hey, every now and then I get it. Mistakes happen, but it's been a pattern for the Ducks. This is not the first too many men on the ice penalty they have taken. I mean, granted, I think it was in the first period. I believe it wasn't, third period, 2 minutes left. That was awful timing. But it's one of those things where it's like, really? Like, that's discipline. That's communication with your bench that you need to get better at. But I mean, also taking penalties in the offensive zone, that's not great either. But they have a knack for doing that where, hey, the momentum builds. They're, they've had a comeback kind of trend this year where, hey, they're within a goal, they've tied it up, and then they take a dumb, useless, no excuse penalty, and then the momentum just dries. But the penalty kill was the biggest spotlight, the biggest shining, the shining light for the Ducks tonight, able to kill off those man advantages. Well done there. And, it goes to show kind of, hey, we're making improvements here, because that was not the case. I believe the Ducks were 31st last year on the penalty kill. They weren't dead last. I believe that was the Flyers. I could be wrong.
It was Vancouver. Let me help you out with that one.
The Flyers had the worst power play. That's right. So penalty, we're making progress here. I think they're middle of the pack. They're not stellar, but it's hard to look at the bright spots here when at the end of the day, didn't even get out of that game with a point when they very well could have. But, we'll take little by little and onto the Islanders on Wednesday.
Yeah, I look at it and I mean, any kind of hits the nail on the head. You want to talk about dumb penalties, the city of the team that I actively live in the city. We have the most too many men penalties this year. And it's the Leafs had 8 players on the ice at one point this year. And I'm like, what are you doing? That's closer to 10 than it is to 5. Why do you have this? And I could totally see from a fan perspective, the offensive zone penalties, those are young penalties. They're immature penalties. Those are penalties I expect from guys I don't know, a Leo Carlson, his first year in the league. Even some of the second and third year, Jackson Lacombe would be fine. Urho Vakanainen would be fine. But if you've been in the league for more than 3 years, if you're not on an entry-level contract, you should not be taking offensive zone penalties, or that's just lazy. It's laziness. And I'm with Annie on that one. That's pretty bad. But the bright spot was the PK. I don't know if you can necessarily count the 5-minute one because of the injury to Connor. When you lose Connor and Scheifele, who are the 2 most important pieces of that power play, it's going to completely disrupt anything you're doing. So I went into that and I actually kind of joked with my friend. I'm like, I think the Ducks are more likely to score on this power play than the Jets are, because when you have kind of that level of discombobulation, you're not really expecting to score because nobody really knows what's up. And then kind of later in the game, when the Ducks really needed to kill those penalties, I thought they did a really good job of it. And that's something that I think Greg Cronin deserves a ton of credit for, because when you have a young team, the one thing that they are usually absolutely brutal at is killing penalties. And the Ducks aren't. And I think that's a testament to getting the buy-in from the young players. And I've really liked Leo Carlson's kind of development. I think he could absolutely be one of that, a two-way force, one of those players that is out on the first PK unit, but also out on the first power play unit. So I'm interested to see kind of when he gets in the mix. But on the whole, I like the Ducks' pressure on the PK. I thought they got to the Jets, and I'll be interested to see kind of the adjustments that the Jets make now that Kyle Connor is likely to be out for, and let's conservatively say, until after Christmas.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I want to dive into that. I do. But before we move on from the special teams, I do want to talk a little bit. And I'm not trying to take away from the Ducks here. Trust. But someone in the comments mentioned it, and I fully agree. It also helps that the Winnipeg Jets power play is dog. It's absolute blasphemy right now. It is just brutal. What, Annie, did you kind of observe from the Jets power play? In my opinion, at least tonight, it wasn't as stagnant as it usually is, but it still wasn't good. What did you kind of observe from the many power plays that we witnessed from the Winnipeg Jets tonight, and kind of why that penalty kill was able to be as good as they were?
I mean, just kind of the first time watching the Jets on the power play, it was very, first of all, which is abundantly clear that the loss of Connor and Scheifele on that 5-minute, you're just that's, I mean, night and day. Even though you say that, the Jets power play isn't that great, I mean, it was noticeably, when you remove players like that, and I say that as a Ducks fan, where it feels like we're adding a new person to the IR every game, and majority of young guys. I mean, God, poor Jamie Drysdale hasn't played, it feels like 4 games in a combined 14 months. But I would say, I think the one thing that I notice is it's not, and I respect the hell out of John Gibson. I mean, he's easily the best penalty killer is John Gibson, and that's not even close. And he had some solid stops, but he's also a goaltender that can be easy to read, especially on the rebounds too, which that's the irony, because I think about that Alex Killorn goal on Connor Hellebuck when he was, I think it was the 3rd rebound he got it on, but really kind of getting to him. And then I can't talk right now. Like it's like so many emotions. I feel like also like I was on caffeine and now I'm on tea right now to like calm myself down and like bringing it down a little
Annie,
bit more.
look at the assortment of things I mean, like, health.
Wait, what is the Sour Patch thing you're holding though?
Okay, so I was talking to Lyss about this. Look, it's Sour Patch Kids, Sour Cherry Blasters, and Sour Watermelons all in one package. Absolutely brilliant.
Oh my
like,
goodness.
10 out of 10. And this package was only $4. And I feel like I would pay double for that.
Oh, easily. Easily.
Yeah. So Annie's coming down. I'm going up. So going to bed tonight's going to be super
Rachel's
fun.
going to have like an 8-year-old sugar crash after this stream is done, but it's okay. Well, hopefully
and I'm like a grandma over here. Which
so,
times have changed.
I think we have to talk about it. I think we got to talk about the early in the second period frame knee-on-knee collision that resulted in 2 players leaving the game, one with an injury, one with an ejection. Rachel, what were your initial thoughts on that play, and how are you feeling about it now?
Okay, so I watched it live, and because I watch a bit, like I watch on a 30-second delay, minute delay, because I hate cable, so I have a different service. I had already received 3 texts asking me what I thought, and then I saw the hit live, and my immediate thought was that's got to be 5 in a game. Now, given the inconsistency we've seen over the last 72 hours from the officials, nobody knows what's 5 in a game. But I looked at that and I'm like, okay, Ryan Strome is not a dirty player. Like, there's no chance he would ever intend to injure anyone. But I looked at that specific play and I was like, unnecessary. Changed your path. Direct collision, injury. That's 5 in a game. And so I thought that they got that call correct, and that's fine. The look I didn't like from Connor, though. Like, yes, he got up and that's fine, but 0 weight on his leg, not even going down the tunnel. Like, that just seemed super bad. Mark Scheifele has 2 career fights now, and both of them have been standing up for a teammate. I feel like that guy has really picked his spots when he gets into skirmishes, and it's always to defend a teammate. Very leadershipy of him. And I thought that was the right play. You have to go, like, that's your best player. That it was a dirty play. That's the right play. And I think Ryan Strome deserves a ton of credit too. He understands that's a bad hit. I'm going to have to answer for that. And we harp on the fact that, like, you shouldn't have to answer for clean hits, but you should have to answer for a dirty hit. And Ryan Strome did that. So I think he deserves some credit there for that. I think because it was early in the second period, it's unlikely that you're going to see a suspension.
Interesting. Okay. Annie, what do you think?
I mean, I didn't like the hit just off the bat first. I didn't need it slowed down. I saw the way, knee-on-knee collision. I was like, yeah, can't happen. Like, and whether or not, like, it was, I mean, obviously, Strome's not the guy to go out there and intentionally hurt somebody, but it's unsafe. You can't be doing that in today's game. And I agree with what Rachel said, though. I like the fight. That was, he kind of understood. He's been in the league. He knows how it goes. And good for Scheifele standing up for his guy, too. I'm going to lean on, I go back and forth just because, I think that the league harps a lot on history, too, on previous history. But I wouldn't be shocked if he got a game. I wouldn't be shocked if he had to sit out. I'm going to say a game.
Yeah, no, for sure. It is definitely the kind of thing, and I won't necessarily speak to the possible repercussions on the Strome side because, like both of you and like Rachel mentioned, I can't even guess at this point. Like, genuinely, it's like, what are we even doing this for? But
we're shooting.
For the Jets, oh yeah, 100%. It's like
it's
blind
dartboard,
chucking whatever at the dartboard after 3 drinks. And
we know it's
a
knee. Like, it's not going to be an ankle injury, and like.
No, exactly.
I just hope it's not anything serious. Kyle Connor's one of my favorite players to watch. That's not a Duck. I hope it's not anything, God forbid, not anything ACL, MCL, anything like that keeps him out a while. But yeah, it's such a shame too, just the way that player safety is like this, because I mean, obviously as a Ducks fan, when George Peros was playing here, he's a huge fan favorite. Respect the hell out of him. He's a smart player too. Like, you would think, hey, he's a guy that knows how to plays the game the right way, played the game the right way as a player, knew his role as an enforcer, would be a great guy to be the head of player safety. But that's just history-wise and the way it's been so far, that has not been the case. So
yeah, that's the thing. It's super frustrating, right? Because he's like, you look at George Peros and you hit the nail on the head. Like in his career, he was a tough guy. He did deal with a lot of this. He's also highly educated. Like there is no reason for you to not be able to be some level of consistent here.
Right.
And I thought at the beginning of the season, like my podcast co-host despises the Department of Player Safety so much so that I had to like deal with text messages from people in the department about it. But I'm like, you can't tell me anything he says is incorrect. He's absolutely right. And then at the beginning of the year, we had to give them credit because we thought that they were being consistent and erring on the side of a heavier suspension for bad plays. You think about the Rasmus Anderson one. And now, like in the last 72 hours, I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, what am I watching? And so you look at this and it's, I feel like what the Department of Player Safety needs is they need a guy like George Peros, but then they need a guy like Paul Correa, who's also obviously a former Duck. You need the guy that's been the fighter, then you need the guy that's been on the wrong end of some stuff, right? And that can really speak to the fact and say, no, that can't be in the game. We got to punish that. You need somebody that isn't a tough guy in the Department of Player Safety. Like, you just do.
That makes it even worse because George had to end his career because of concussions too. So you would think he would kind of have both sides of, being able, that's why you would think he would be the perfect guy for the job. But, maybe Rachel, you can speak more to this than me, like as far as like the structure for the actual department and how those decisions are made, but something's got to give here. Like something
it's trash.
I believe it. I wouldn't be shocked. I wouldn't be shocked if it's like him and then a whole bunch of other, I don't know. But
my favorite thing from today is David Perron's been offered an in-person hearing, and then like 3 hours later, actually it's over Zoom. It's like, wait, what? Like,
none of it. My understanding, at least of that, is that if it's an in-person hearing, it means it's live. Otherwise, sometimes the hearings, it's just like they find out later or something like that. Like the player doesn't actually have to be present sometimes to get a suspension, do they? Sometimes like appeal it later or whatever. So it's basically,
it happens over the phone. The agent's usually on the phone, the GM's on the phone, but then like if it's in person, George Peros has to look the player in the eye. So I guess Zoom could be considered in person, but also like get on a $300 flight and get your ass to New York. You're getting suspended. What are we doing?
No, for sure. But moving to look at the specifics of that injury and what that could possibly mean for the Jets, I think it's really interesting to look at. Well, first of all, the fact that game 3 of the season, Winnipeg Jets lost one of their top 6 players to a knee-on-knee hit from Blake Lizotte. Gabe Vilardi was out for however many weeks with a sprained MCL. I keep screwing up this injury. I never remember what it actually was. But it's something like that. He's back now, and he's scored the game winner tonight, so shout out my boy. But it screwed with what the Winnipeg Jets wanted to do with their top 6 and all these types of things. And this is that to the nth degree. Like, this could be really bad for how this team manages. But I personally, I am one of those people that is really hard on Kyle Connor, and I love him with all my heart, and I think that if, God forbid, he's out for a period of time, it's really gonna hurt the Jets to a certain extent, but I actually think there is some silver lining to what they might be forced to do in his absence. Like with any star player injury, is that you learn what other players are capable of. And we've been talking about this for weeks about how a lot of players, defer to Kyle Connor on the power play and all these kinds of things. It's not a coincidence that tonight's latter half of the power plays were a little bit more interesting because they didn't have that anchor on the wall that they just wanted to fire the puck to shoot. They're looking at other options. And Vlad Nemestikov is back from injury now. Gabe Vilardi is sort of getting back into the groove of things. Like there's some potential to concoct some interesting lineup choices for the Winnipeg Jets if this player is out for a little bit of time to sort of see what some of these guys are actually worth. And Rachel, one of those players is Cole Perfetti. In the absence of, even tonight, seeing those 11 forwards, they were throwing everyone and their mother out there on every type of shift. I really like the way that they were just kind of blending all the lines. And Cole Perfetti is one of those players that I think, the usage has been kind of questionable at times this year with this player, but in the absence of a top 6 person, if that situation were to arrive, he'll be pretty good. What do you think of that player? And what do you think that, how did you find his game tonight, just as a whole? What are your thoughts on Cole Perfetti?
Yeah, so I love Cole Perfetti, and I think it's funny that this kind of happened in this game because like the three of us can talk about it. The Jets are going to be forced to do something that I feel like Anaheim has been forced to do with Trevor Zegras being out. It's not like Trevor Zegras was very good prior to going out. Maybe you should show up to training camp on time, but like I think the Ducks have kind of been forced to try different things. Trevor Zegras isn't the guy stirring the drink on the power play, and now the Jets are kind of in a spot where Kyle Connor can't be the guy stirring the drink on the power play. And Lyss, you nailed it. Our short king, Simba, Cole Perfetti, should be that guy. Rick Bonus at please let this kid have this opportunity. He's one of those players where he shoots the puck, he can pass the puck, like super well-rounded offensively. And I feel like he has been in the shadow a little bit. Whereas like with Kyle Connor, he's very clearly a shooter. Like he's not a passer. And so I feel like that's not the guy necessarily that you want running your power play. Like that isn't what we're going for here. And I think about like for years, the best power play in the league was Washington's. And it didn't run through Ovechkin. He simply just shot the puck. It ran through Nick Backstrom, and that he's so important because he can be a shooter, but he's also an elite passer. And I think that that's what Cole Perfetti can be. And I really hope that he's the guy that takes the spot there. He's the guy that they kind of operate the power play through because it'll give him a chance to develop as a premier power play player. That'll be good for his development while Connor's out. And then who knows, by the time Connor comes back, if he comes back this season, because let's face it, we don't know. Sorry, I'm actually ruining.
Speaking that into existence.
Yeah. But I feel like by that point, whenever Connor does come back, Perfetti will have developed and they won't be as reliant on Connor and they'll be able to move the puck a little bit more. So I feel like from a power play and an offensive perspective, this might be good for the Jets in the long run.
Yeah, no, for sure. And Annie, maybe to help, there's some Jets fans in the chat here. We see I have a lot of our regulars here, everyone who's live here right now. Thank you so much for joining. Make sure you hit subscribe and like the stream. We appreciate everyone being here live. But Annie, to really help kind of ease our worries right now, your team has been, I would say just in the aggregate overperforming expectations this year. I know the Anaheim Ducks are not everyone's cup favorite necessarily, but that's also been in spite of some very important injuries that have kind of occurred in their lineup right now. We have guys like Mason McTavish, Jamie Drysdale, Trevor Zegras, all these guys have been missing some time. What do you see in your team and how they manage missing those key players and how they kind of adapt?
I think it all started, and I'm going before the season. Isaac Lundestrom had to go out with Achilles surgery, and everyone kind of looked, Isaac Lundestrom's kind of like that third C, and everyone kind of saw that spot being opened as an opportunity for Leo Carlsson to enter the lineup. Now, seeing the kind of player Leo is right now, I think he would have gotten that opportunity regardless if Isaac Lundestrom was in the lineup. But I'd also, it's one of those things where, you go into training camp, you really don't know. And obviously, Pat Verbeek and Greg Cronin have this development plan in place for Leo Carlsson that, am I an expert at developing players? No, absolutely not. So and I obviously don't have the plan in front of me, but at first it was, 2 games. And then, hey, now they're like, okay, we'll kind of add in a third game or we'll, ease. But I get easing the workload for a rookie and somebody not wanting to just throw them out into the fire. And it kind of makes me think, not to cross sports here, but the NFL, you go into the draft and they're looking for quarterbacks, somebody that they can like start. Oh, who's our new franchise guy? And then some of these kids, you just throw them to the wolves, throw them with the Sharks, like right away. Be like, here, you got the ball week 1. Go play with grown men. But then you see like the guys like Patrick Mahomes, the Josh Allens, the guys that, didn't get the ball week 1 or kind of rode the bench and kind of waited their turn and learned, ease their way into the starting role. And I think that's, you have your exceptions, of course, with, your Connor Bedards, your Connor McDavid, your generational talents. But I think that's the way to do it with young guys. But as far as the injuries go, for one, I think that Trevor Zegras being out really shows how different of a lineup and different of a team this is with him on it, because that first line with him, Leo and Troy Terry, was just clicking. They were working together. They weren't as hot as Vetrano, McTavish, and Strome at the time, but they were just getting some great plays together. And really, Yeah, Zegras wasn't putting up as many points as he would like to, obviously, on the board, and as the fans would have liked to have seen. But I mean, that guy makes a difference when he's out there on the ice, and he is a difference maker for that team. Is he the franchise? Is he the face? I mean, I would argue, yes, he's still the face of the franchise, but I think, we're kind of seeing that the stars and the super, I don't want to say superstars because they're still so young, but there's so much more talent on this team outside of Zegras. I think you're getting a lot more looks at the guys like Carlson, at Pavel Minchikov, at Lacombe, I'll even say Lukáš Dostal, who had a great start to the season in October. I think now it's a little interesting how they're kind of dividing time with Gibson and Dostal, where at first they were switching off games, and now now that Gibby's showing that, hey, he's on it this year. They're giving him a little bit more leeway, but it's really, it's one of those things, like you said, the expectations this season are, hey, this is still a rebuilding hockey club. I think that the team is further along than a lot of people think they are. I think, some people are like, oh, they didn't start rebuilding until last year. They didn't start rebuilding until they traded Lindholm, Raquel, Manson. Yeah, that sped things along, but that wasn't when the rebuild really started. So, but I mean, all things considered, kind of relying on the veterans, they've really responded, and there's been a lot of winnable games. I'd say there's only really a handful that the Ducks just absolutely did not deserve to win, whereas there's so many losses that they've had where it's like, hey, like this game, there were winnable opportunities. This was a game they were in, maybe not the full 60 minutes, but a good amount of time. So, it's still early, obviously, but the way they're responding to injuries, I'd say so far, even though probably points-wise not as great, I think play-wise, with the exception of tonight, so far so good.
Yeah, and maybe
I look
circling
at the Ducks.
Sorry, go ahead.
Oh, okay. I was gonna say, I look at the Ducks, and I remember Annie and I talking in preseason, and I took so much flack for saying that the Ducks were gonna surprise a lot of teams this year, because people were like, the Ducks are gonna be terrible, they're gonna be in the celebrity sweepstakes, and I'm like, I don't think so. I think the Ducks are gonna surprise. And Annie and I were laughing because I was taking so much heat for saying that, and I was like, man, it is not that serious. You don't need to yell at me. But you look at it,
it's never that
people
serious.
Are nuts. But when Annie going through and mentioning that those two top lines to start the season, the Ducks' top six when healthy is pretty freaking good. The amount of talent, just raw talent, is incredible. And Leo Carlson was really stirring the drink on that line, and that development plan has turned out to be great. Hope we'll see if he kind of hits the wall that maybe we're expecting some of the other rookies to hit, but Jackson Lacombe has looked incredible. Pavel Mintyukov, I am not even remotely surprised. I mean, I was working for a team when that kid was drafted, and I remember saying to myself, I'm like, this kid's gonna be good. He's gonna be really good, and it's not gonna be very long before he's really, really good. I mean, I'd be lying if I said I wish we did. I wish that the Canucks, when I worked for them, got him, because that was the kid that I really, really wanted. And I look at kind of how they've built once Drysdale comes back. It not only is it a super talented decor, it's a really young decor. There's a real opportunity to develop. I will say, I think they're giving John Gibson this runway here because they've kind of fallen out a bit, and they know that they're not going to be a playoff team. And there is a part of me that seriously thinks that they're giving Gibson this opportunity to showcase he can still be a goalie, so that they can trade him for a boatload at the deadline, because the Oilers should be ringing off the hook. The Leafs might be ringing off the hook. The Devils need a goalie. There are so many teams, specifically the Oilers and the Devils, though, that need a capable goalie. And if Gibson can show that he's that, you never know. Maybe that nets you a serious prospect from a deep prospect pool in New Jersey, or it gets you somebody like Xavier Bourgault from Edmonton, or a Philip Broberg, who could really use a change of scenery that I think would benefit from the Anaheim kind of defensive development system. I kind of think that that's what Anaheim's doing, but I love watching the Ducks play. I really do. And I think the Ducks are going to be that team next year that is the one that goes, hey, they're in the wild card. They're wild card 2 next year.
Fun. I like the bold prediction. I'm gonna hold you to that.
Okay.
So speaking of the Ducks and what we like about them, I'm gonna circle back to tonight's game a little bit and throw maybe I'll throw it right back to Rachel first, specifically maybe a kind of pro and con list sort of style. What did you really like about the Ducks game tonight? And also on the other side, like what did you like about the Jets game tonight, kind of as a whole for both these teams, and where you see this game sort of fitting in the fabric of how you feel about these teams right now?
Yeah, I'll start with the Jets because it's just like top of mind. They showed tonight that they have the character and like the I guess the gumption of a contending team, because non-contending, non-mentally strong teams, your star goes down, you go down 2-0 in the third, you pack it up and you go home. Like we don't got to do anything. Like we're packing it up. So the resilience that they showed to be down there, losing their best player emotionally, that's tough. To go down 2-0 and to come all the way back and win in regulation, that is and has to be the major positive of the game. Like, to me, I look at that and I'm like, I don't want to play the Jets because now I can see that they're together as a team. Like, I thought Adam Lowry was fantastic, and I thought that the team really stepped up. The defensive coverage in front of the net left a little bit to be desired, but that's fine. And then moving on to the Ducks, I mean, once again, like we're talking about the Jets, who are now first place in the Central Division, and the Ducks basically handed it to them for the first 2 periods of the game tonight. Like the Ducks are all the way in it. The Pacific is an uber weird division, and if the Ducks play like that, they are going to win more hockey games than a lot of people think they do, because you look at it, they are coming back in transition. The attention to detail in the defensive zone is a lot better than it usually is for a young team. Like I thought Jackson Lacombe in particular, his habits in the defensive zone are extremely mature. And that's not something that anyone really expected. Like, let's face it, this is not a 10th overall pick we're talking about here. This is not Pavel Mintyukov, who also, I think he struggled a bit of late, but you could tell that there's so much talent there. So what I saw tonight from the Ducks was, one, a lot better in the defensive zone than I had kind of pegged them to be, especially for a young team. And 2, the raw talent that exists on that team is going to be a problem when it's harnessed. It is going to be a massive problem for the Pacific Division, because you basically got Trevor Zegras no longer has to play center. This is Leo Carlson, Mason McTavish, Isaac Lindstrom when he's healthy, and that is going to be a major issue for the rest of the Pacific Division going forward.
Yeah, 100%. And I glad I'm not in that division. So someone in the chat mentioned a weird division for now, like definitely for sure. But there's some exciting stuff kind of brewing in there. Annie, I'll throw it to you. What's your big plus for both teams after tonight's game?
Well, I want to bounce off what Rachel said. I think a big part of why, the Ducks kind of look the way they look this year, especially why the young guys are getting a look, is because they're getting the opportunity to play too. I mean, Greg Cronin, that's this new head coaching regime that they have, because under Dallas Eakins, that was not the case. I mean, people were kind of begging, wondering why aren't Zegras and Drysdale getting those minutes? Why aren't they getting those power play looks? Why aren't they getting out onto the ice down by 1, 2 minutes left in the game? But, Greg Cronin's been very good about putting these young guys out in these opportunities. Yeah, of course, you've got the development plans and things like that. But the fact that Pavel Mintyukov is getting the minutes he's getting and getting those looks out there and hell, that hip check on Chris Letang back in October still owns prime real estate right in my frontal lobe. Like, you're just like, this is a man. This kid is ready to play with grown men right now. So, as far as the pros, obviously a big pro, the penalty kill. I know we talked about that at length, but that was stellar. Especially when you get that one on 5 minutes. For me, like, I need to see, and this is the biggest frustration for me, because he is my absolute champion for the next captain, although I'm kind of leaning, I've been on the train for him to be captain. Troy Terry needs to be better. You are getting paid too much money. You're getting paid. You just signed that sexy 7-year, $7 million annual contract this summer. You got to be playing that much. You haven't scored since November 1st or so, that game against the Coyotes, which was very beginning.
Oh my God, what?
Yeah, that's the last time he scored a goal. Yeah, not good. Not good. Although I will say that was a great pass and play to Killorn for the goal. So it's not without a point, but he's got to get on the board more. And then just discipline. I mean, at the end of the game, just completely unraveling. It's kind of in those moments, the good teams, like you said, the Jets were able to, say, hey, arguably our best player goes down, how do we respond to this? They were able to build off of that and find a way to win. And the Ducks just completely unraveled. It's one of those moments where like a mature team, a together team is able to do that. And then, maybe the Ducks are still in that stage where they're trying to find that identity still, whereas the Jets are more established and there. I mean, a good portion of that group has been together, which, hey, same with the Ducks, but you're still dealing with a lot of guys that are still figuring out who they are as hockey players. So, and then also bright spot, John Gibson was retro for the majority of tonight. He was on his game.
Amazing. All right. Well, we're creeping up on the time here for the length of the show, so we're just going to do a little quick jump into the chat for some questions. So for those of you who are listening live, thanks for sticking with us through the show. It's been great to have you all here. Make sure you're hitting that like button and sending some comments in. Throw your questions in the chat now. We're going to do a quick little rapid fire with Annie and Rachel with any questions that you guys throw into the chat here. So the first one I'm going to throw right back to Annie to start. Wildcard spots. Right now we're almost at the Christmas break. Predictions right now. 2 Central or 2 Pacific, or 1 of each? What are your thoughts? Where are you at?
Ooh.
Rachel lucks out because she has time to think on it. So you're on
the
spot.
Central. I'm going with 2 Central. I like the Central Division this year.
Wow. Okay. You know what? I emotionally will take that. The Central has been dogged on by everybody. They're like, man, this division stinks. And I'm like, you know what? I know, but it's my division, so.
Yeah, no. I mean, they've had a lot. I mean, Nashville's been disappointing, I would say, to start. But I think the Coyotes sneak into one of those wild card spots and just shock the world. And people do have to see a playoff game played at Mullet Arena at Arizona State University. I would love nothing more than for that to happen. So I'm going to speak that into existence. Maybe, I mean, it's hard to say. I believe who's in a while. It's Nashville and Arizona in those 1-2 spots. I believe.
I'd say so. Yeah.
Okay. So maybe Edmonton sneaks in. No, I'm gonna be bold. I'm gonna say I think Minnesota will get it together. But I think the Central makes it interesting.
Okay. I like it. Rachel, what do you think?
I think 1-1. Okay. And I'm gonna say that a team falls out of the Pacific like 3 spots because Edmonton's gonna go up. Their underlying metrics and numbers are preposterous, like hilariously good. And so I think that happens. I'm not entirely sure I'm less sure about Minnesota, but I will say if Minnesota is the one that doesn't get in, I do think I'm with Annie. I do think it's Arizona that goes in.
Hell yeah.
So I'm going to go 1-1. I think that everyone and their mother at the NHL head office would be absolutely furious for revenue reasons if playoff games are played at Mullet Arena. And to be fair, yeah, they probably should be. But like, hey,
it's on them for letting them play a hockey team there. So
hey, you know what?
Chaos.
If you're so concerned about an arena not being ready in 2026 in Milan, maybe you should be more concerned about the arena not being ready in 2023 for your own freaking hockey team. But also the atmosphere, like, I'm with Annie. I would love to see that, and like I would 100% fly down for a game. Like that would be.
If it's against the Jets, I will be in attendance. You can mark my words on that.
We're gonna do game over from there, the 3 of us.
Absolutely.
Oh my gosh. The American college beer prices, you'll see me there. I'm just last question in the chat here, and I'm gonna take this one and run with it a little bit. So Lucas is asking if Lambert gets called up, because the question is if Kyle Connor's out long term, do they try and promote one of the kids that's kind of cooking up in the AHL right now? And my thought is no. Right now, Brad Lambert has been such a volatile kid for the last couple of years of his development. At the age of 14, people were talking about him like he was the next Gretzky. Age of 16, he'd fallen off of the map completely, and it's just been kind of all over the place with Brad Lambert. He's been cooking right now in the AHL, and I'm really happy for the kid. He's getting some reps at center. He's really enjoying himself, it looks like, and doing really well. I don't think they want to disturb that. My hot take is if they are going to call someone up, it's going to be Nikita Chibrikov. And I feel like he's got that type. Okay, Rachel's got something to say about this then. I like the excitement. I think Nikita Chibrikov is really cool. I think it's a better style of player, knowing he's a little bit older and all these types of things to fill into that slot. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. Send him back to the Moose. There's no problem with any of that. I think that if there's a long-term Kyle Connor injury, God forbid, like we're still hoping that that's not the case, but we kind of have to prepare for the worst here. I'm I'm thinking he might be the one they give the shout to, just to bring him up and see what he can do. Rachel, do you have anything to add on to that?
Yeah, so I'm right with you. The worst thing you can do, like I did a whole master's on drafting and development, and I'm about to embark on a PhD. Horrendous idea. But Columbus is giving me a lot of great material to write about how to not do this, and the Ducks are giving me the opposite, great material on how to develop. So if you are about to develop and you want to be the Anaheim Ducks of instead of the Columbus Blue Jackets, with Brad Lambert, you let him cook down there, because the worst thing you can do with a prospect is yo-yo them up and down. Hi, Kent Johnson. So,
hi, Billy Hainola.
Billy Hainola. Yeah, like let's hope the Jets learn their lesson here, and they don't bring the Ducks didn't bring Jackson Lacombe up until he was ready. They didn't bring up Trevor Zegras until he was ready. They certainly wouldn't be playing Leo Carlsson if they didn't think he was ready. And so if you bring Brad Lambert up, you can't send him back down. That's the thing, is like he's finally finding his groove at the AHL level. He needs to do that for an entire season in the same way that like players like William Nylander and Nikolai Ehlers did before becoming excellent NHL players. Whereas a kid like Nikita Chibrikov, like you can't call a kid like Lambert up and play him on the third line. Like that's just that's not going to work. Whereas with Chibrikov, he's a little bit more versatile. He's a little bit more established. He's got a little bit more maturity to his game. And he's a little bit more versatile. You're not so worried that things are going to go completely off the rails if he has a bad game or two. And so I think I look at this and I bring up Chibrikov if things go awry. I leave Lambert down there to continue to find his game, maybe develop at the center left position, because they probably are going to need that. And so I look at that and I go, Chibrikov's probably the guy. Yeah. And if it's really, really long term, then you wait until a kid ends his college season like Rutger McGroarty and he goes right into the lineup, because by the time he finishes college this year, he will be ready.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, and also trade deadline coming up. They need a middle six piece anyway. Maybe this just bumps up the urgency. But Rachel and Annie, thank you so much for coming and joining me on Game Over tonight. It's always a blast to have you on. I have a super fun show planned with these two and some other fun guests later in the year, which is going to be real good. Before we sign off for the night, Annie, I'll throw it to you. Where can everyone find you? What are you up to? And where can everyone stay in touch with you?
You can find me on Instagram, TikTok, Twitter at Sweet Annie OD. Posting lots of fun content, and got a lot of plans coming up through the end of the year as far as content goes. And always, I started out as very broad sports, and I still kind of dabble in, big baseball girl. I won't say it. I won't say it. I'm sorry. But I've kind of segregated down into hockey. So just, posting lots of fun informational content. So yeah, come hang.
Love it. Yeah. And for those of you who did not observe Rachel and I's reactions, Annie's a Dodgers fan. I was considering actually kind of nixing the show. I was like, I think it's too fresh. I think these last couple days are gonna hurt us a little bit. I'm not. Or if I were to be a fan of any baseball team, I'm definitely a fan of the Jays. Like I'll watch a game every now and then. I'm not a baseball girl. Like that is not me. But I was literally like, it was like 2020 election vibes of me sitting on my couch watching TV like this. Like I was literally like sitting there staring. Every single day I had sports.
Were you tracking the private plane too?
No, I was not tracking the plane.
That's psychotic behavior, by the way.
I didn't go that far, but I was waiting for some news to break on this, and then I was just like, I was so excited. But yeah, anyways.
Although I did see that Cody Bellinger's, I think, wife or girl, I can't remember.
They're here.
She posted Toronto. I love Cody Bellinger. I know you guys will take care of him if he signed
Cody so much.
I would love him in that Jays lineup. I wish
for 50. Sushi for 50.
Dead.
Rachel, where can the people find you?
Crying Tears is where they can find me.
Crying into your PhD.
Like what's funny is like I live in Toronto and my stepdad's a massive, like he knows people at the Jays, like so do I, and so like this was like a big thing, but like my NL team for like years has been the Dodgers, so now it's like I don't know if I'm allowed to like the Dodgers anymore. That feels like it might be sacrilegious. But people can find me at puckbuck/sportygirlmath on TikTok, at Rachel Doerrie on Instagram, the Staff and Graph podcast on YouTube / wherever you listen to podcasts. Yeah. that's kind of what I do. I'm sure if you're in this Game Over, you probably know that I yell and scream on Twitter a lot. Yeah, that's pretty much where you can find me. I will be launching my model relatively soon. There's going to be an analysis angle and a betting angle to it. So, yeah, I'm excited for that. And I mean, I'm not as fun as Annie on any of the social media platforms, but I just yell more.
I'm waiting for your model because I'm still like new in the sports betting space. So I'm still like picking it up as I go, and I'm doing more like I'm learning it for the fun. Whereas like, okay, there has to be like, but I want to be good at it. So I'm like, okay, I need math reasoning. I need to like put in something where I'm like, hey, I know that this is gonna happen. I need to predict the future as much as I can.
Decision making. That's what
I love money, baby. I want to win money. I want to be right. Okay.
I got you, Annie. I got you.
100%.
Let's get rich, Rachel.
Yes.
Well, the reason I always look forward to having Annie and Rachel on the shows or interacting with them and doing fun content together with them is everyone knows how passionate I am about women being bold in the sports space, and these two are two people I look up very, very much when looking at that sort of angle. So make sure you check them out. Check me out too, obviously. I appreciate everyone who's here on Game Over. My name is Lyss. I feel like I probably introduced myself earlier on the show, but I know a lot of people are here for Rachel and Annie, as they should be. But I'm here after every Jets game, me or my co-host Brady. So make sure you check us out. There's also a Game Over stream for every single Canadian market after every single Canadian market game, which is real fun. They always got fun guests. It's a really fun time. So make sure you hit subscribe on your way out and never miss anything from SDPN. Thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight. It was a really fun show. Rachel, Annie, thank you again. I will see you again on the show very soon. Have a good Sunday, everybody, and we'll see you next time.
Game